Welcome back to the Jag Bros. After another heartbreaking loss for the Jaguars against the Eagles this Sunday, there was a time in the second half where I was like, wait a second, could we actually win this game? And if the Colts lose on Sunday night, which they did, we would have only been one game behind them for the playoffs, which is crazy to think. And they're there for a glimmer, for a hope, for a second. I started to hope and I started to see it again. But alas, here we are. Tied for dead last, give or take, with the worst team in the NFL, the Jacksonville Jaguars, for 2024 again.
I texted y'all at the end of the game and said, I'm proud of myself. Finally, first time all season, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to buy into the Jaguars coming back and actually finding a way to win this game after being down 22-0. They've done this too many times. We're 3-12 in our last 15 games, and none of those wins are against any sort of legitimate teams. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason last week we started our rebuild part 1, and there's a reason we're talking about rebuild part 2, fixing the defense, because this team is beyond broken. We can't win against a good team.
We'll fix this defense, but eventually we just got to fire this coach. I mean, that all loss was 100% on the coaching. How do you not throw it to BTJ or give the ball to Tank Bigsby more? The two people that are carrying your offense, and they are barely seen in this game. I understand BTJ's coming back from somewhat of an injury, but your season's already pretty much over. It's not like, oh, let's hold on to him. We have like 4 wins, 5 wins, and we'll save them for the end of the year. No. We need him now. Like, what are we doing? He is the lifeblood of this offense, and there were no plays schemed up for him. We were constantly throwing it to Trammell and to Parker Washington plays fine, but Strange was not out there when he has been playing well. Ingram's only getting 2-yard passes. It's just a disgusting display of coaching. Your last play, I thought this was Trevor who threw it to the running back, a fade. But no. Apparently, coach said that's the hot read for that play. So why in the world are you calling a play where you were throwing it to the end zone to a running back when you have a 6'4" wide receiver, and then you also have a tight end who just jumped over 3 people to tie the game last game? But no, let's not throw it to those 2 people. Let's throw it to the 5'5" running back who's not even a wide receiver.
This is going to be a fun episode because we're going to continue our trend, as Jack mentioned, of breaking down the defense. We'll spend a couple more minutes on this Eagles game, a really frustrating game, a game that somehow the refs tried to let the Jaguars win, which is also rare for the refs to be on our side.
Eagles try to let us win too. I mean,
yes,
the Eagles are terribly coached as well. They wanted to give it to us.
And look, there's a lot to discuss too in this game, because we got to see some of the things that we wanted to see. Joey, you've been calling for 2 years to see more hurry up offense from Trevor. And despite the fact that we almost never got a first down the entire first 2.5 quarters, once he did, he started to get in a little bit of rhythm. To your point, Joey, about Brian Thomas Jr., it's one thing to say we want to ease him back in, but he was on the field 91% of snaps. Offensive snaps last week. So it's not like you were easing him back. Tank honestly did not look as explosive as ETN. ETN did look a little bit better, I thought, than Tank today. So a little bit of a disagreement there. But
I don't know. He ran fairly well a few times. They gave it to him in the second half.
I mean, he didn't really have anything noteworthy.
I mean, he had nothing that big.
He was 8 for 22. I also
don't think they really schemed it up for him.
To be fair, Joey, if you're going 3 and out on 5 straight possessions or 7 straight possessions, it's not like anybody's going to have a whole lot of plays to work with in that regard. But
I know
you already hit on it. Despite all that Jacksonville was doing, you have a minute 40 ball on the 12 or whatever the specific yard line was. Why not run the ball there? Like you can run the ball and make them use their timeouts, make the clock start working for you. All of a sudden you go from a first and 10 at the 12 to a 2nd and 5 at the 7. They're most likely going to have to call a timeout. You have a chance to design a play. So there's so many different options you could have done there. So despite the fact that you have
in your hands and we're playing as if we're still not in control. Granted, Trammell should have gone down inbounds. That pissed me off, but he's a practice squad guy. that's just he doesn't know what to kind of do. But if he had gone down in bounds, let the clock run, you have all three of your timeouts, put the pressure on the Eagles. It's elementary, and Doug is running it as if this is the most complicated and no one else can understand what he's doing. It's so crazy. How we didn't leave him in Philadelphia is nuts. I don't know what happened to him. He used to be a Super Bowl coach. Now he's not a Pee-wee coach.
I honestly feel bad for y'all that y'all thought that the Jags could win this. This has happened.
They should have won it. It shouldn't have been,
yes,
maybe we'll win it. The game is in your hands. They should have
won a bunch of these games. It's deja vu.
Well, they should have got blown. Let's be real.
Right.
The Eagles dominated them in every single aspect, except for the coach was kind of fiddle farting around, they're playing with their food. Jacksonville got one touchdown and then a gift of a touchdown. They didn't even cause that turnover. It's just the ground caused it off of the tackle that wasn't called a tackle. So we got a free 7 points, and now all of a sudden we actually have a chance to win the game. It was a weird game.
That's such a Jaguars fumble though that the Eagles had. I was like, oh, that it just seems like something that would happen to us.
Yes, and so the Eagles, there's a lot of scenarios. You play that game back 100 times, Jacksonville probably wins 5. They were by far the worst team, and so when you have the chance, because here's the other thing, what would have happened? We would have scored relatively quickly there. There would have been a minute left. They would have only needed a field goal, and I can almost guarantee you
that's what I'm saying. Why are we trying to go for a touchdown at a minute 40? That's just terrible clock management. I've never seen such a poor clock management.
They acted as if there was 12 seconds left and it was a running clock.
Exactly.
I feel bad for y'all. This was a game that the Eagles were far and away the better team. They had
I understand they
had the ball for 17 minutes more than we did. They won the turnover battle 3-1. Again, y'all already mentioned the turnover that wasn't really a turnover. We were 3 for 10 on third down. We can't convert third and short. They were 9 for 17 on third down. This team is terrible. I told you, we're not going to ever win against a good team. We have not won against a legitimate NFL team in over 365 days. Of course, we weren't going to win this game.
Of course, we're not going to win because it is the most obvious thing. This defense is not going to stop them if you give them the ball back with just 30 seconds. You have to know, I need to milk this clock till 3 seconds and score then. That is the only way you're going to win this game.
It's a bad offense.
Throw it to the end zone with a minute 40.
Yes, it's a bad offense, a bad defense, bad coach. There's a reason we're doing a rebuild, part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There is so much to rebuild for this team. And there's a reason we're doing it on week 9 of the NFL season.
Yeah. Well,
Great point, Jack. Let's dive into that.
Well, and we also have to talk about, of course, Saquon Barkley hits a reverse hurdle that every NFL fan ever is talking about, and it happens against the Jaguars.
Oh, yeah. Well, what's so terrible is those 2 missed tackles before he even pulls it off were just absolute terrible attempts at trying to tackle him. The defensive line is just trash. Well, let's start there.
Actually, before we do that, you got to give the defensive line some credit because they actually stopped Jalen Hurts twice on the tush push, and at first it looked like the Eagles just panicked. They didn't know what to do, and then they were just doing a whole bunch of weird stuff on 3rd and 4th and short instead of just going for their normal tush push. So
you could see that's all they planned for pretty much that week was
it's just we're going to stop the tush push no matter what. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know who number 3 was, but I saw him jump over the center and try to
Campbell
RKO Jalen Hurts out of the end zone, which it actually worked. So.
All right. So again, here's the format. This is, of course, our first time doing this. This is our second year of the pod, and last year was a year filled with hope that led to disappointment, but this year it's been the opposite. It's just been a lot of losses. So we said, hey, we're going to rebuild the offense. Go back and listen to that episode last week. Had a lot of fun, and now we're going to look at defense for 2025 and beyond. And so how this works is we're going to make potential switches, changes, but we're 3 brothers, diehard Jags fans, so you have to get majority vote. So, Joey, get us started on our defensive line. Currently, the Jags defense have 22 players under contract for 2025 and beyond, maybe some trades over the next day or so. But for the defensive line right now, the Jags have Hines Allen, Walker, Lacey, Abdullah, Cole, Armstead, Hamilton, Smith, and Jefferson. Where do you want to get started with our D line, Joey?
Well, I mean, the edges are at least the starting edges are set. You have no edge depth. Armstead is not an edge player. I don't know if you can trade him or get out of that contract, but you need to get rid of him.
You won't be able to.
And as the new defense coordinator, needs to just sit him down and be like, you're a D tackle and you're staying at D tackle, and you're going to play a whole lot more than what we're playing you now, because he's still only getting like 30 or 40 reps, which is just not enough for what we're paying you.
To Joey's point,
we took 7 defensive tackles. I don't want a single one of them on this team next year, except Mason Smith can maybe become something if the coaches don't hate him so much.
To your point, Eric Armstead has not played more than 50% of snaps. We played in 9 games so far. He's only played more than 50% of snaps once, which is
I know
it's unbelievable. I mean, Devon Hamilton. Devon Hamilton averages almost 60 to 70 snaps, and this guy's a rotational guy with Jeremiah Ledbetter and Jordan Jefferson.
Well, no, everyone was like, "Oh, this is such a great idea. Go get a D tackle." But no, it comes out way late into the offseason that we signed him as a rotational edge guy that we would sometimes move in at D tackle. That means you're paying $20 million for a guy who's going to be playing behind Josh Allen, and it's not his position, and he's only going to play his position just a little bit. I don't know whose idea that was, but that's a fireable offense right there.
Which we'll get into part 3. We're going to talk coaching staff and GM, and so hit subscribe because, again, there's going to be a lot of parts to this rebuild. There's a lot of fix. But, Joey, you're 100% right. Of course, the Jags are not going to move on from Josh Hines Allen. He just got the big extension. Finally had a nice sack game with 2 sacks against the Eagles. Trayvon Walker has had a solid to strong season. He's still in his rookie deal. So, starting edge, you're good. And, man, I legit don't – I feel like I can figure out some sort of solution for most of the positional groups on the Jags. I don't know what you do at defensive tackle, because you're right, Joey. You're sitting here with 7 defensive tackles, and I'm like, I mean, I guess whoever the new DC is just runs a tryout and says, if anyone can show any sort of talent, we'll keep you. But, I mean, do you just draft more defensive tackles? Do you run with 10 defensive tackles?
No.
I mean, what do you do? Do you waive all these guys?
Well, Joey, you highlighted that Devon Hamilton was the problem with the Jaguars defense last year. Every snap he was on down the stretch was a disaster. He's played better this year, but it's not like he's a revelation. So I think you're not going to spend more. You're not going to spend more draft capital, I don't think, at defensive tackle unless Balky.
You have to.
Well, no, I think you just hope for development with Jefferson or Mason Smith or Ledbetter or any of those other guys.
Even if those 2 develop, Hamilton's just no good. Like, he's not going to get better. This is his ceiling, unfortunately.
I agree with you on that.
So that means just by chance, the miracle happens and the LSU guys play much better next year, and those are your 2 starting D tackles, you're going to have no depth. Ledbetter is not going to be it.
You have Eric Armstead as your depth piece here that you're paying $20 million a year.
$50 million rotation.
Look, I think the defensive line is relatively simple. You let the guys walk that are currently not under contract, which they're not even worth mentioning because you've never even heard of these guys, Jaguar fans. And then you just go sign somebody for $10 million a year. You go sign the Clowney, you go sign the Campbell. I'm obviously not those particular people for next year, but somebody like that who is a seasoned veteran who still put up good stats in 2023 or 2024. And you just go sign him, go pay him $10 million a year, and that is your 3rd rotational defensive end that you bring in for blitzes, or heaven forbid one of your other edge rushers gets injured.
You need to draft a stud D tackle.
We've already drafted. Oh, you don't draft what?
No, we drafted a project who could. In
what round are you going to go defensive tackle, Joey?
What
round are you going to go defensive tackle?
3rd, 2nd.
No, we've wasted so many second and third picks on defensive tackle. There's so many other needs on this team.
When have we
Defensive
ever
tackle.
done defensive tackle at that spot other than
20,
Mason Smith?
2023.
Literally last year, the second
I
round,
said
and then we
other
did
than
it again
Mason
in the
Smith.
fourth. And then we did it the year before.
We haven't drafted a D tackle high since like other than Mason Smith, Big John, and Marcus Stroud, who are our best guys. I'd kill for those people to be on our team.
Well,
Sure, but like it's a different NFL now where it's more pass than run, and we're not spending a top first round pick or even a high second round pick or a high second round pick on a defensive tackle. You put way too much draft capital in this. The new
we
coach,
talk about needing to beef up
coach,
the trenches. That's where you need to beef it up. Ezra Cleveland, you got tackle Walker Little played worse than I was ever expecting. So
shocking.
I'm glad our offensive rebuild we did not, because I saw a lot of tweets say, "Yeah, well, just re-sign Walker Little."
No,
yeah, that was.
I try to tell you guys, everybody's been hating on Cam for years, but like
reality
is Cam is a solid starting level offensive tackle, and that was my point last week.
Have y'all seen that where the Vikings coach is praising Cam Robinson? He got a game ball. Everyone's cheering. He almost looked emotional too, which I don't blame him. You finally get out of the dumpster fire that is Jacksonville. And now you're on a contender. Your team is cheering for you, praising you. Yeah, good for Cam, I guess. It feels like every Jags player that happens to you leave for greener pastures and somehow they play magically. But which is why I say this cold.
They were playing. He was playing good. He was the highest rated offensive lineman, I think, outside of Mitch Morris by Pro Football Focus.
Okay, for most, that's not tough competition though.
Fine, but it's a good thing we got good thing we got a provisional 6th round pick in 2026 or whatever it is.
It's a provisional 4th. Stop that.
No, it's a 6th. That's a provisional 5th. And
no, it's not. No, it's not.
We're paying him.
It's not. It's a provisional 4th or a 5th. There's no 6th involved.
Well, we're also paying him nearly $8 million right now to go and dominate for the Vikings. So, anyways, back to the tackle. I think this is, I'm going to go with JT here. And I think you have to go hit this in free agency because you can't afford another swing and a miss. Because you're banking on Mason Smith, maybe. Yeah, he had a great freshman year at LSU, but he's been all downhill since. Jefferson has barely seen the field. I think you need a proven vet, and you're just going to have to tell whoever the GM is next year for the Jags, you're going to have to pay again to fix this defensive tackle problem. Because, look, the Eagles just gashed us on the ground because you can run up the middle. And I said this stat last year. I don't have it exactly in front of me, but I think the Jags defensive tackle position of all 2023 had total every defensive tackle like 1 or 2 sacks from that position. Where you look at the Ravens, a D tackle like Matabike getting double-digit sacks. So you just have no interior pass rush. You always get gashed on 3rd and 4th and short. So I think you go free agent, maybe 2 free agent spots on draft tackle. And then I'm guessing we all agree draft edge sometime before the 7th round for that 3rd rotational edge rusher, because we've been really, really fortunate that Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker have stayed really pretty healthy these last 2 seasons, because if one of them went down for a long injury, we would be even more screwed as a defensive line.
We'll move on from defensive line. I would disagree, but I think you and Joey are in agreement there on what you do. I just think if you look at a spreadsheet, you're saying we're spending $40 million on defensive tackle. I'm not going to go re-sign somebody else. And we have guys that we that are rookies or year 2 or year 3 guys.
Wait, what do you say? I thought you were saying sign a free agent at defensive tackle.
I said don't touch defensive tackle. I think you can't touch defensive tackle because you have the young talent that's
dumb.
But you have the defensive talent, and
it's worse than our offensive line. How can you mean you don't?
Well, your theory is, I mean, Cisco played 0 snaps.
Yes, let's not add any edge rush either.
That's literally not what I said. I said you have to add extra edge depth, but you have so many other needs on this team. You have to hope Mason Smith can actually develop. Cisco did not play pretty much a single snap under Urban Meyer that whole year 1. And he's turned out to be a fine-ish
He
starter
played
for the
well
last
2
couple of
years,
years
and
for
then
the
this year
Jags.
he's been bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Don't
So like
resign
if you
him.
can get that type of production from Mason Smith, then you're happy.
You can get a safety anywhere.
You got a second round pick and you have draft collateral and you spent $20 million on the other defensive tackle. You're not going to spend another $15 million on another defensive tackle.
You have
That's
to.
just- That's what you just gotta do.
You don't have to. You have to just roll with.
No, you
You're
can't
not
roll
spending
with
any more money.
This is your issue. Yeah, let's just roll with Ledbetter or whatever. No,
This is the
the
reality.
defensive tackle position is the most important position on the defense because if you can't stop the
1,000%
run,
disagree. 1,000% disagree because
if
you.
you
I mean,
can't
just
stop the run, then they can do whatever they want to you.
that is so inaccurate. It just look no further than what a team's willing to pay for a position. People are spending twice as much on a defensive end than they would a defensive tackle. And corners are also going up and up and up to the point where that is becoming the second most important. Defensive tackle is the fourth or fifth.
I agree that, of course, edge is going to be the most prized, most important position because an edge guy, there's a reason they typically win Defense Player of the Year. There's a reason they get paid the most. But I agree with you, Joey, on it's our weakest position and we keep missing on it. And you can't just say, oh, well, we're kind of stuck at this. I mean, you've got to keep swinging, whether that's the draft or free agency. I say free agency, but Joey, if you want to go draft, I mean, you've got to do something at defense tackle.
They're not going to spend any more money. They're going to have to get some old.
Your ability to make decisions here.
What are you talking about?
That's just moronic to think you're not going to touch defensive tackle.
But if you touch defensive tackle, you're not spending more than $5 million on somebody. That's my point.
Then
you
have
way too much money. You have way too much money. You have way too much money and way too much draft collateral in that position right now. You just paid your quarterback. You have to make decisions somewhere, and that's a strategic bet that I would be willing to make. Is go find some 32-year-old guy.
Your edge
to be a year or
anyone
two
off the street to rotate with Josh Allen.
That is so wrong. You can't get anybody off the street to edge rush. That's been bulky strategy. That's literally been bulky strategy. Is we've done that for 2 years now.
Bulky strategy is just to get nobody.
That's my point.
Strategy.
You just get these guys off the street and they don't really produce, and then we're shocked when we're the 21st most sacked team.
He doesn't get just anyone off the street because he went with Chase on and then nobody. So he doesn't do that.
Chase on was the first round. Abdullah was a fifth round. Cole was a seventh. I mean,
Abdullah's not an edge guy. He's a linebacker that they're trying to make an edge guy.
No, he was an edge rusher for Louisville.
He was an edge rusher at Louisville.
Yeah, double-digit sacks. He was just too small, and still is too small, obviously, for the NFL. I mean, I don't, again, I told you, I mean, I really don't know how to fix this, but I don't think you can, I know for a fact you can't do nothing. You're going to have to hit both. You're going to have to hit defensive tackle, and you're going to have to hit edge depth because, to both of y'all's points, Balky keeps missing a defensive tackle and keep not addressing edge depth. And there's a reason the Jags are, even with two of the best edge rushers in the league, we're still always bottom 10 or bottom 12 in sacks. And your secondary keeps getting cooked. I'm just going to say, and I don't even necessarily know where to go in terms of agreement other than to say, we've got to do something.
All right, let's go to linebacker. Let's see if there's more agreement here.
Back to D-line.
Linebacker's fine. You keep Foye, you start Ventrell Miller, you keep Lloyd because you got him and he's not terrible, so you rotate him in whenever you can, and then you just get rid of Chad Muma.
Yeah, you really can't play Miller and Aluakon though, because they're such a liability in the pass that you have to find. To your point, Joey, you keep Lloyd for at least one more year. I would not be surprised. I would be more willing to spend higher draft capital here than I would be at defensive tackle.
Dumb.
Because you're eventually
to cover. You don't need to go draft that.
You can teach him to cover. We've rolled out Aluakon and Lloyd, and Miller is too slow to cover a good tight end or some sort of fourth.
What do you mean Miller's too slow? It's Miller's first year. He was IR in the entire time last year. You teach him this year on the offseason how to cover, and then you maybe you get a late round guy to help.
Okay, I'm looking this up. So Ventrell Miller is a 4.82, which is not great for a linebacker. I mean, the reality is
He's not fast. You're
no.
right, Jack. He's a 4.82. I watched him at Florida for 4 years. He's not a good coverage. That was literally his weakness. He is a plus linebacker at stopping the run, which, oh, by the way, so is Aluakon. He's basically a poor man's Aluakon. And that's, I think that how they drafted him is to potentially let Foye go originally and to have him be that run stuffer guy. But you can't put both of those guys on the field or you're just going to get torched in the middle of the field for any type of zone defense. Or if you're playing any type of man, the tight end goes off. And oh, by the way, we try to quote unquote teach a linebacker how to play to cover for years now. And I'm telling you, Vontrell Miller does not have the speed or the skills to do that from a pass protection space. I like him fine as a run protector. You just open up way too many doors. So that tells me you probably are drafting somebody in the second or third round to potentially replace Devin Lloyd because you're certainly not giving him a second contract.
I don't have a problem with drafting one, but I'm not drafting one until at least the 4th or 5th.
I'll draft a defensive tackle in the 5th.
I'll draft the linebacker in the 5th and then take your 2nd or 3rd and draft a defensive tackle. Your priorities are all skewed.
Okay, well, two things. One, just for interest of, because some people are going to want to know who we're going to pick. Probably part 7 or 8 or some point we'll do a mock draft and actually, a mock free agency and see who we'll actually pick. But just in terms of priority, a linebacker almost never goes first round. Linebacker as a whole have just become more and more devalued. Not to say they're not important, but we've seen it with Ventrell Miller, who's been a nice surprise. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I was ready to write him off even before the injury. I didn't like him in that draft class. He has been a surprise for a day 3 draft pick, and you're going to keep rolling with him. So I think you try to hit gold again on a day 3 draft pick. We got a bunch of 4th and 5th rounders. Let's say that for linebacker. I would say
go get somebody in the 2nd round like Nakobe Dean, who just, by the way, picked off your running back at the end of this Eagles game. That's the type of guy you want that can actually cover somebody in space.
Well, the Eagles are just better drafters, which we'll get
fine, but it's because you saw they just got Cooper DeJean, who tore it up, was everywhere too in the 2nd round. Like that's the type of guy. That's the type of guy you should spend high capital on. One of those linebackers that out of Georgia or Kentucky or somebody that they fell and they're super versatile and ability to cover and fast.
Yeah, DeJean was projected to be a 1st rounder. The Eagles gave him the middle 2nd round. We take in the middle 2nd round Mason Smith, who's projected to be like a 4th rounder.
And oh, by the way, who's not started or who's not even been activated for the last 3 games.
Yeah, apparently, quote unquote, ankle injury, whatever the heck that means. Anyways, all right, we'll break the tie. We'll go defensive tackle day 2, and we'll go linebacker day 3 in the draft. I'm going to say you're going to probably need to go free agency, both those as well. A cheaper vet option just to give you some depth there. Because especially if you do move on from Muma, who's done nothing all year other than look good in the preseason, I think you're going to start, and we'll, of course, when we get into coaching, say, are we going to shift back to 3-4, stay at 4-3? But you're going to roll with Aluakon, Lloyd, and Miller. Lloyd and Miller being on rookie deals, Aluakon being on a fairly team-friendly deal, and you get no cap savings even if you wanted to move on from him. But let's talk about the bottom of the bottom. The Jaguars secondary. Ronald Darby, it was just tweeted today that he has allowed the most pass yards when targeted. He got torched yet again against the Eagles, giving up nearly 100 yards and a touchdown. You have Campbell. You have Jarian Jones, who's been a decent rookie. You have Monteric Brown, who's been an interesting 7th round pick. Prince has barely seen the field. And then safeties. It is a hot mess right now because Cisco is a free agent. So you have Johnson, Savage, Wingard, Thomas. Where do y'all want to go from here on the secondary?
You have to go draft.
So here's the $1 million question. We've all seen it a ton of times. So the Jaguars are currently the number 2 overall pick according to Tankathon. So if he is on the board, are you drafting Colorado wide receiver / defensive back Travis Hunter?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you have to. You have to go high collateral.
But he has to be willing to mostly play defense with maybe a little bit of offense. We can throw him up, some strange plays, but we need him at corner more than wide receiver.
because Gabe Davis will demand the playing time.
Gabe Davis, but it's going to be BTJ. I'm most likely Kirk. We have one more year with, right?
Yeah.
Here's another situation though. You can't spend more money. You can't spend more money at corner. You're already paying Tyson Campbell the most amount of money, or top three, and then Darby you're paying a lot, and so
you get rid of Darby. Darby's cut, or
I think he's got a lot of dead cap room, doesn't he? Doesn't he have a huge dead cap hit?
Okay, so actually, for once, good news for Jags fans. Ronald Darby is currently under contract next year for $5 million. You save about 2.2 million, just over 2.2 million if you cut him. Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer.
Cut him.
I mean, I've said it every episode. The game plan against the Jags is easy. Just target whoever Ronald Darby is covering.
Or target whoever is on a linebacker.
Played well against Miami, and then since then has just been absolute garbage. So I don't know what happened.
You're probably also going to have to go, because nobody gives up their bit. There's a shortage of good safeties in the league, period. And so you're not going to go overpay for another terrible safety. You're probably going to have to go top 3 picks for a safety, and hope you hit on that, because right now you're going to end up starting Antonio Johnson, who looked bad, and Darnell Savage at safety. I think Johnson actually looked better at corner than he did safety.
Oh no,
but
you start
he's not been
Wingard
good
over either one of those two. You're going to have to get a veteran safety, and then you're going to have to draft one too, and then hope you hit, because you're not going to be able to draft them high.
You guys are spending money left and right. You guys are spending you don't realize how expensive these veteran safeties
left and right.
I'm not. I told you I'm not drafting a defensive tackle. So
you're going secondary twice for the top 3 picks.
Either or,
and he's somehow getting an offensive tackle and a linebacker.
You
act like drafting, they're going to play right away. You have to understand they're not going to play well their rookie year too.
Well, guess what? First off, that is a lie that the Jaguars have been told, because guess what? I just saw Cooper DeJean.
Yep.
Like everywhere.
Mitchell played great.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, you see these guys.
You're going to get a few people like
just
that.
Just because they're a second round pick does not mean that they're guaranteed to never see the field for the first year, unless you play for the Jags.
Hey, we'll get a great opportunity to watch the Lions and all their amazing draft picks destroy us in a couple weeks.
Oh, we could have had Brian Branch and Cooper DeJean. Missed on both of those.
Well, this is why it hurts so bad that we didn't do anything at corner last year, and we wasted a pick on a defensive tackle, is because there was a lot of talent on the corners that we could have had, and then we could have shored this position up.
So here's the only other solution I have to potentially not go first round corner, is you give Jarian Jones a shot at that CB2. He has been the only bright spot so far in your secondary. He's been far and away the best PFF graded secondary guy for the Jags, even as a rookie.
Can he play outside though?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like him playing star. Star is such a that nickel position is so critical these days, because so many people run their offense through their slot receiver. Think about Amon-Ra, you think about Cooper Kupp, you think about all these other
leave him
Godwin. I wouldn't touch him.
Who's actually outside.
Exactly. Completely agree with you, Joey.
I'm so tired of the Jaguars moving people where they're not supposed to be.
Well, yes. Okay. I mean, look, Jarian Jones has played outside corner a lot at FSU. So let's not act like this is an impossible.
No, but it's harder to play. It's harder to find somebody that plays good nickel. And if you have that,
but here's the reason. Here's the reason I bring it up is because we do have guys that quote unquote play that position. JT, you said you like Johnson and nickel. Savage played for Green Bay at that nickel corner. What you don't have is outside corner. So if you don't move Jones to corner, you are forcing yourself to have to go corner probably the first round, because otherwise you're starting a rookie second rounder, and you're going to have the same problem we had this year, where it's okay, well, this is easy. Just target the rookie who's decent but not great.
You have to spend one of your top day 1 or day 2 picks on a corner, in my opinion, because Campbell has also shown that he's not going to be healthy. Campbell played well. Yeah, he played well, but is he Sauce Gardner good? No, but he's fine.
No, but if he's on the field, you will have no issues.
Here's the other good news. And again, we want to look kind of big picture now, and we'll get into more specifics later in the season. But even just looking at this draft class, it is very, very good at corner. Obviously, Travis Hunter is the number one. You have Will Johnson, a corner out of Michigan, top 5, top 10 guy. You have Benjamin Morrison. He's another high first-round guy out of Notre Dame who unfortunately got hurt this year. So there's going to be talent. Maybe you trade back a couple spots if you don't go the Hunter route and you go one of these other corners and just get more draft capital. But I think we would all agree we're moving on from Cisco this offseason.
Yeah, it's sad because watching him play the last 2 years, I really thought he could get a contract and play well, but this is his contract year and he's playing this bad. That's just not acceptable. And I haven't liked his demeanor or the way he's supposed to be a leader. I don't think he's led this defense very well. You let him walk, I believe. Though I do think he's better than he's shown. Talking about really quick draft picks and everything, defensive line, I would love for us to go get that Virginia Tech guy at defensive line, defensive tackle. He has 12 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 22 solo tackles.
Goodness, what would that even look like for Jags? We never get any sacked or force any turnovers.
To have sacks from the inside would change the game for that defensive line. All you need is one of them. You can have one average to below average D tackle if you have a D tackle that can bring pressure from the inside, and then you have 2 really good edge guys. That's what I thought Eric Armstead was going to bring, and we were just so wrong. We were fed misinformation. I would also like to know, to save Trent Baalke's job, if he's smart, what I would do is say, hey, all these defensive players that I signed in free agency, Ryan Nielsen told me to get these people. I didn't, fully vet them. I believed in Ryan Nielsen because they are so atrocious this year. These free agents, it's a pretty much an immediate fireable offense. Like, it's crimes against Jaguars that these people are on our team. So to save your hide, I'd throw Ryan Nielsen under the bus.
Oh, well, we know he's done that in the past. He's done that with San Francisco. We're pretty sure he is and will do that to Doug. And again, we'll get into part 3 of the front office changes, the coaching changes, because every Jags fan knows that's where if we have any hope for the future, they're going to have to make drastic changes.
It starts from the top down as we. Yeah.
Exactly. So
what I can't wait for is a lot of people are campaigning for Tony Baselli to be the new executive president of football for the Jaguars. So he would be Trent Baalke's boss if Trent Baalke stayed. And I think he would keep him in line and not let Trent Baalke just do whatever he wants.
Baalke's got to go. But yeah,
I know he got to go, and I'd be happy if he did go. But I'm on it 60% he stays, 40% he goes. Not because that's what I want. I just think that's what's going to happen. Just because I haven't seen anything where Shad Khan is quick to be kicking him out the building. And I have to admit that his draft picks have done well. You can't deny it. Though a very strange thing about Brenton Strange is he had the least amount of snaps he's ever played against the Eagles. He was in for 5 snaps when he's played his best football the last 4 or 5 games.
It's not strange, and your wide receiver group is beat up. I mean, to me,
you got Trammell in there constantly.
It's an obvious move of Peterson versus Baalke.
It's crazy. Because if Brenton Strange actually pans out, then Doug looks like an idiot for not playing him as much last year, and also not playing a 2 tight end set more often, which I think this offense would actually run well off of a 2 tight end set, as we saw in the last drive against a very good Packers defense.
Yeah. Again, we'll get into it next week. JT had to jump off early, but I totally disagree on the draft picks. He's had a couple nice picks, but for the most part, Baalke's draft history to me has not been good. But that's going to be
It's not the best. It's been suspect, but I don't – it's not been as bad as
You just said it was good. Now I was saying we're going to save it for next week for part 3. But let's recap the defense, our defensive moves. So again, Jaguars unfortunately have a lot of players under contract, but all three of us agree there needs to be some drastic changes. Joey, you and I are saying defensive line
Defense tackle. Yep.
Yep, first. And then JT, you're saying secondary first. All of us are saying those have to be fixed the most. So let's stick with what are some of the least changes. Linebackers, we like the core. We see potentially a day 3 draft pick there and a free agent vet depth piece. And then for secondary, we think the first round pick needs to go corner for the outside corner to line up across from Tyson Campbell so we don't have that big gap. Safeties, we think that's probably going to be either a early day 3 or free agent move. And then defensive tackle, Joey, you and I got the majority to get us a day 2 draft pick at defensive tackle. And then we've got to hit edge rusher and just hope we find gold in day 3 or a cheap free agency move. But again, even though the Jags have 22 players under contract, we're making a lot of moves, and there needs to be a lot of moves because Jags defense is ranked close to the bottom on a lot of these things. So again, we'll get into like specific players, specific moves, kind of part 4, part 5, somewhere around there. But that's kind of big picture of what we are thinking for the Jags defense 2025 and beyond.
What's crazy is last year we finished 26th worst defense. So we blow up and get rid of almost every single coach. And then now we're like 30th and we're worse.
It's bad. I don't have a ton of words, and unfortunately, Jags fans, we're kind of going to have to bunker down for several more weeks because Minnesota, when they're playing well, can easily crush us. Detroit looks like the hottest team in the NFL. So, like I said last episode, we could easily be sitting 2-9 going into the bye. And again, I think either if we get crushed by enough points this next week or we get crushed by the Lions going into the bye, I think that's when Shad is going to make at least one, hopefully multiple moves. But that'll be part 3. Let us know what you think of this format. Again, this is very, very different than what we typically do. We typically do a game breakdown and game preview, stuff like that. We're going to drop our predictions on Twitter and maybe some other places as well for week 10 against the Vikings in Minnesota. But make sure to follow along with us on Twitter, on YouTube, on whatever podcast platform you are listening to. But Joey, any final thoughts, any final things for Jags rebuilding the defense?
A quick announcement. We just heard that Tyson Gibson has been cut and released from the team. So after keeping him this entire time, he can finally play, and we cut him.
What are we doing? It is crazy. And also, it seems like every time we jump on, the Jags are making big moves. Again, last week it was trading Cam. And, well, I don't even know if this counts as a big move, but a move. So, again, the trade deadline is coming up tomorrow or Tuesday, whenever you're listening to this. We'll see if the Jags make any more moves like this, cutting Gibson. But wrong move after wrong move.
As I said, I think it starts in the trenches, and then it starts with a new coach. This defensive coordinator may be one of the worst I've ever seen in the NFL. The whole rotation of anyone and everyone should play is just absolutely wrong and goes against everything in football. You have stars for a reason. You don't ever take them out. It's crazy. Anthony Richardson gets benched because he needs a breather. And then our defense, oh no, let's just rotate everyone. It's not football. That has to get gone.
Yeah, it's not NFL football for sure. And that's a perfect segue to next week's episode because that's where we'll start. Offense, defense coordinators, head coach, GM, front office. What moves do the Jags make? And you can go ahead and let us know what moves you want to make there. Let us know on defense in the YouTube comments or on Twitter, but also let us know what moves you want to make for the Jags front office. If it's fire everybody, fire most everyone, whatever it is, let us know. But we're going to close out, as unfortunately we've been doing for several weeks in a row from the Jag Bros. Boom.